On the way back from the family trip, the kids got hungry, so my parents decided to stop so they could eat. As we reached the restaurant and sat at the table and began ordering, my mother yelled, "Your kids can eat when they get home." While she started handing out plates, my sister's kids started eating their meals. Her husband said, "Should have fed them first if they were so hungry." Dad added, "Some children just need to learn patience." I just whispered, "Copy that." When the waiter returned, I stood up and said, "Growing up as the middle child in the Patterson family meant existing in a permanent state of invisibility. My older sister Lauren had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Everything she touched turned to gold, or so they believed. Me? I was background noise, the daughter they tolerated rather than celebrated. The favoritism started young. Lauren got the bigger bedroom, the nicer clothes, the actual birthday parties with friends and decorations. I got hand-me-downs and a cupcake with a single candle if I was lucky. When she made honor roll, Dad took her out for steak dinners. When I made honor roll, Mom said it was expected and asked why I hadn't gotten straight A's like Lauren always did, conveniently forgetting that Lauren had never actually achieved that either. This trip to Lake George had been sold to me as a family bonding experience, but within the first hour of driving, I realized it was really just another excuse for my parents to worship at the altar of Lauren and her perfect life. She'd married Derek 3 years ago, a finance guy who drove a BMW and talked endlessly about his investment portfolio. They had 2 kids, Madison, age 6, and Braden, age 4. Both children were, according to my mother, absolutely precious angels sent from heaven itself. My own kids, Emma and Tyler, ages 7 and 5 respectively, were apparently sent from somewhere significantly less celestial. The lake house weekend had been 72 hours of watching my parents dote on Lauren's children while ignoring mine. Madison spilled juice all over the carpet. Oh honey, accidents happen. Tyler accidentally knocked over a plastic cup. Why can't you watch what you're doing? You're so clumsy. Braden threw a screaming tantrum because he wanted ice cream before dinner. Poor baby is probably just tired from all the excitement. Emma politely asked if she could have a popsicle. We don't reward whining in this house, young lady. My ex-husband Josh wasn't on this trip, thank God. We divorced 2 years ago after he decided his secretary was more interesting than his family. The divorce had been messy, expensive, and emotionally devastating. My parents' response? Well, you must have done something to drive him away. Meanwhile, Lauren's marriage was apparently perfect, even though I'd overheard at least 3 arguments between her and Derek that week alone. By Sunday afternoon, as we loaded up the cars to head home, I was emotionally exhausted. Emma had asked me twice why Grandma and Grandpa didn't like us, and I'd run out of gentle excuses. Tyler had stopped trying to show Grandpa the cool rocks he'd collected, because after the 5th time of being brushed off, even a 5-year-old gets the message. We were about an hour into the drive when Emma spoke up from the back seat. "Mom, I'm really hungry. My tummy hurts." Tyler chimed in immediately. "Me too. Can we stop somewhere?" I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was almost 6, and we'd skipped lunch because Mom had insisted we needed to get on the road without delay. The kids had only eaten some crackers and fruit snacks I'd packed, and that had been hours ago. I called my dad's cell phone. He was driving the lead car with Mom, Lauren, Derek, and the kids all crammed in. "Dad, the kids are really hungry. Can we stop somewhere for dinner?" There was a pause, then muffled conversation in the background. "Sure, Sarah. There's a family restaurant at the next exit. We'll stop there." 20 minutes later, we pulled into the parking lot of a place called the Copper Kettle, one of those generic family restaurants with pictures of burgers and pasta on the signs out front. The kind of place with crayons and kids' menus, where nobody bats an eye at children being children. We all filed in together, and the hostess seated us at a large table near the windows. Emma and Tyler slid into the booth beside me, their faces bright with anticipation. Across from us, Madison and Braden were already coloring on their kids' menus, making a game of it. The waiter, a college-aged guy named Marcus according to his name tag, came over with a friendly smile. "Hey folks. Can I start you off with some drinks?" Before I could open my mouth, my mother's voice cut across the table like a knife. "Just waters for now. We need a few minutes." Marcus nodded and headed off to grab our waters. Emma was looking at the kids' menu, her finger tracing over the pictures of chicken tenders and mac and cheese. "Mom, can I get the chicken fingers?" she asked quietly. "Me too," Tyler added. I was about to tell them yes when my mother's voice rang out again, this time significantly louder and directed straight at me. "Your kids can eat when they get home." The entire table went silent. Emma's face fell, and I watched Tyler's lower lip start to tremble. I felt heat rushing to my face, a mixture of humiliation and rage. "Mom, they haven't eaten since." I said they can wait, she interrupted, her tone leaving no room for argument. Then, as if to drive the knife deeper, she reached across the table and started distributing the bread basket that Marcus had just set down. But she only passed rolls to Lauren, Derek, Madison, and Brayden. And Dad, of course. My kids and I were completely bypassed. Lauren didn't even flinch. She just broke open a roll and buttered it for Madison, acting like this was completely normal behavior. I sat there in stunned silence, watching as my mother handed out the bread like she was dealing cards, deliberately skipping over my children who were sitting right there, hungry and confused. Derek, Lauren's husband, smirked and looked directly at me. Should have fed them first if they were so hungry. His tone was mocking, cruel. Like this was somehow my fault, like I was a negligent parent for not force-feeding my children in the car. My father, who'd been studying the menu, looked up and nodded in agreement. Some children just need to learn patience. He said it like he was delivering profound wisdom, like he was teaching my kids some valuable life lesson instead of just being needlessly cruel. Emma had tears in her eyes now. Tyler was staring down at the table, his shoulders hunched. They'd done nothing wrong. They were just hungry kids who'd been promised dinner. Something inside me cracked. Or maybe it had been cracking all weekend, and this was just the final break. All those years of being second best, of watching my children be treated like they were less than, of swallowing my anger and telling myself to keep the peace for the sake of family. I thought about every Christmas where Lauren's kids got expensive gifts while mine got dollar store toys. Every birthday where my parents showed up hours late to my kids' parties but never missed one of Madison or Brayden's. Every school event where they found excuses not to come to Emma's and Tyler's but moved heaven and earth to attend Lauren's children's activities. I remembered Emma's kindergarten graduation last year. She'd been so excited, had been talking about it for weeks. "Are Grandma and Grandpa coming, Mom?" She'd asked every day. I'd called them, reminded them, even sent a calendar invite. The morning of, they'd called to say they couldn't make it because they were helping Lauren paint her dining room. When I pointed out that could be done any day, Mom had sighed and said, "Sarah, don't be selfish. Lauren needs help." Emma had asked about them as soon as the ceremony ended. I had to lie and say they'd had an emergency. I remembered Tyler's T-ball game 2 months ago, where he'd been so proud to hit the ball for the first time. He'd been looking for his grandparents in the stands, waving and searching. They weren't there. They were at Brayden's swim class evaluation, which wasn't even a competition, just an assessment. I remembered every dismissive comment, every double standard, every moment where my kids had been taught that they were less important, less loved, less worthy of attention. I leaned back in the booth and whispered, more to myself than anyone else, "Copy that." Marcus returned with our waters and pulled out his notepad. "Ready to order?" My mother immediately launched into her order, followed by my father. Then Lauren and Derek ordered, and food for Madison and Brayden. The waiter was writing everything down, occasionally nodding and asking questions about preparation and sides. When he finished with their orders, he turned to me with that same friendly smile. "And for you folks?" I stood up. Everyone at the table looked at me with varying expressions of confusion and irritation. "Actually, Marcus, my kids and I will be eating elsewhere. But I want to make sure you know why." My mother's face went red. "Sarah, sit down. You're making a scene." "No, I don't think I will." I kept my voice calm, steady. "I want Marcus here to understand that you just told my children they can't eat here. You said they can wait until they get home. You distributed bread to everyone at this table except them. They're 7 and 5 years old, they haven't had a real meal since breakfast, and you decided they don't deserve to eat." Marcus looked extremely uncomfortable, glancing between me and my parents. I continued. "So I'm going to take my hungry children to literally any other restaurant in this town, where they will be treated like human beings worthy of a meal. But I want to make sure you understand, Marcus, that this is not a reflection on your service or this establishment. This is entirely about the people at this table. Sarah Elizabeth Patterson, you sit down right now." My mother hissed, her voice low and venomous. "I'm 34 years old, Mom. You can't ground me anymore." I pulled out my wallet and placed a $20 bill on the table. "That's for the waters and the trouble. Marcus, I'm sorry you had to witness this. I hope the rest of your shift is better than this." I turned to Emma and Tyler. "Come on, guys. Let's go find somewhere that actually wants us." They scrambled out of the booth immediately, relief flooding their faces. Emma grabbed my hand tightly, and Tyler pressed against my other side. As we walked away, I heard Derek mutter, "Dramatic much?" I heard Lauren's voice next, lowered but still audible, "She's always been like this. making everything about her. My father, let her go. She'll calm down and apologize later. But I heard something else too. I heard Marcus's voice, polite but firm. Actually, I'm going to need a few minutes before taking the rest of your order. I need to speak with my manager. I didn't look back. I walked my kids straight out of that restaurant and to my car. Once we were inside, Emma burst into tears. Why doesn't Grandma like us? She sobbed. I pulled both kids into a hug as best I could from the front seat. Baby, it's not about you. It has nothing to do with who you are or how wonderful you are. Some people they don't know how to love fairly. And that's their problem, not yours. But we were good all weekend, Tyler said, his voice small. I shared my toys with Brayden even when he was mean. Emma helped Madison when she dropped her ice cream. I know, buddy. You were both so good. The problem isn't you. It's them. I pulled back and wiped Emma's tears. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to find the best restaurant in this town, and you can order whatever you want. Appetizers, entrees, desserts, the works. And we're going to have our own celebration. What are we celebrating? Emma asked, sniffling. We're celebrating being free, I said. Free from people who don't appreciate how amazing you are. I drove around for a few minutes until I spotted a local diner with great reviews on my phone. It was one of those classic American diners with red vinyl booths and a jukebox in the corner. We walked in, and an older waitress with kind eyes seated us immediately. What can I get you sweet babies to drink? She asked Emma and Tyler, and I almost cried at the warmth in her voice. The kids ordered chocolate milkshakes. I ordered a coffee. When she came back with the drinks, she set them down with a wink. I added extra whipped cream. Don't tell my boss. Emma and Tyler giggled, and the sound was like medicine. They ordered burgers and fries. I got a club sandwich. We talked about school, about their friends, about what they wanted to do during the summer. Tyler told me about a book he was reading about dinosaurs. Emma talked about her art project. Normal, beautiful kid conversations that had nothing to do with being compared to their cousins or found lacking. My phone started buzzing halfway through the meal. My mother calling. I declined it. She called again. Declined again. Then came the texts. Mom, you embarrassed this entire family. Mom, you owe us an apology. Lauren, Dad's blood pressure is through the roof thanks to you. Hope you're happy. Lauren, you've always been jealous. Get over it. Derek, your kids are spoiled brats just like you. I turned my phone face down on the table. Emma noticed. Is that Grandma? Yeah, sweetie. But we're having our time right now. She can wait. It felt revolutionary, saying that out loud. In the Patterson family, my parents never waited. Everyone else adjusted their schedules, their plans, their lives around Margaret and Robert Patterson's preferences. Lauren had moved her wedding date twice because it conflicted with my father's golf tournaments. I'd rearranged countless work meetings to accommodate their last-minute visits, only to have them cancel or show up hours late. When Tyler was born, I'd been in labor for 18 hours. I called them when I went to the hospital, excited and nervous and wanting my mom there. She'd said they'd come soon. They showed up 7 hours after he was born because they'd stopped to have lunch and do some shopping first. We figured you'd be busy anyway, Mom had said with a shrug. When Madison was born 2 years later, they'd been at the hospital before Lauren even went into labor. They'd waited in the waiting room for 12 hours, brought flowers and balloons, took 1,000 photos. My father had cried holding her. I'd never seen him cry when my children were born. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from my dad. Then Lauren again. Then my mother. They were tag-teaming me, trying to wear me down with persistence. Mom, why do they keep calling? Tyler asked, his face worried. Because they're upset that I stood up for you guys. But that doesn't mean I did anything wrong. Sometimes doing the right thing makes people angry, especially when they wanted you to keep accepting the wrong thing. He nodded slowly, processing this. At 5 years old, he was learning lessons about boundaries and self-respect that I'd only figured out at 34. The waitress came back to check on us. Everything tasting good? It's perfect, I told her, and meant it. Glad to hear it. You folks look like you needed a good meal. Emma spoke up, her voice stronger now. Our grandma said we couldn't eat at the other restaurant. The waitress's expression shifted, just slightly. Well, their loss is our gain. We're glad to have you here. After we finished eating, the waitress brought over 3 slices of different pies. On the house, she said. Chocolate cream, apple, and cherry. I couldn't decide which one you'd like, so I brought all 3. I tried to protest, but she waved me off. Honey, I've been waitressing for 30 years. I know when somebody needs a little kindness. Enjoy. We ate the pie slowly, savoring every bite. Tyler got chocolate on his nose, and Emma laughed, and I took a mental picture of this moment. This was what mattered. Not my parents' approval. Not Lauren's smug superiority. Just this, my kids happy and fed and loved. By the time we got back on the road, it was dark. The kids fell asleep within 20 minutes, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day. I drove in silence, my mind racing. My phone had stopped buzzing, but I knew there would be more messages waiting. More accusations, more guilt trips, more gaslighting. The Patterson family playbook was well established, but something had shifted in me. Maybe it was years overdue, but standing up in that restaurant had broken something open. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn love that was apparently conditional, trying to be good enough for people who decided long ago that I never would be. I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for them. They don't mean it. That's just how they are. They love us in their own way. What kind of love deliberately excludes hungry children? What kind of grandparents treat their grandchildren so differently based on which daughter birthed them? When we got home, I carried Tyler inside while Emma stumbled in sleepily behind me. I got them into pajamas and tucked them into bed. Emma was already mostly asleep, but she mumbled, "Love you, Mom." "Love you more, sweetheart." I went to my own room and finally looked at my phone. 43 messages. I scrolled through them, each one a variation of the same theme. I was selfish, dramatic, jealous, immature, ungrateful. There was nothing from my parents asking if the kids had gotten dinner. Nothing asking if we'd made it home safely. Just anger that I dared to stand up for my children. I opened a new message and started a group text to my parents and Lauren. I'm done. I'm done being treated as less than. I'm done watching my children be excluded and dismissed and treated like they don't matter. I'm done making excuses for your behavior and swallowing my hurt to keep the peace. Today was the last time you get to hurt my kids. We won't be attending family events anymore. Don't call, don't text, don't show up at my house. When you're ready to treat all 4 of your grandchildren equally and with genuine love, you know where to find me. Until then, we're out. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Within seconds, my phone started ringing. Mom. I declined and turned my phone off completely. I sat there in the darkness of my bedroom, heart pounding. Part of me expected to feel panic, to immediately regret what I'd done. The Patterson family had a way of making you feel crazy for having boundaries, for suggesting that maybe, just maybe, you deserved basic respect. There was a soft knock on my door. Emma peeked her head in. Mom? Are you okay? I patted the bed beside me, and she climbed up, snuggling close. Tyler appeared in the doorway moments later, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, and joined us. I want to tell you guys something, I said, wrapping an arm around each of them. You know how sometimes at family gatherings with Grandma and Grandpa things feel unfair? Emma nodded immediately. Tyler just pressed closer to my side. Well, I've decided we're not going to go to those anymore. We're going to do our own thing, just us 3. Maybe we'll make new traditions. Maybe we'll find other people who treat us the way we deserve to be treated. Will we ever see Grandma and Grandpa again? Emma asked, her voice small. Maybe someday, if they decide to change how they act. But right now, they're not being kind to you guys, and my job as your mom is to protect you. Even if that means protecting you from family. Tyler looked up at me with his big brown eyes. Did we do something wrong? My heart cracked. No, baby. Not even a little bit. You 2 are perfect exactly as you are. This isn't about you doing anything wrong. This is about me finally doing something right. We sat there together for a while, the 3 of us in a little huddle. Eventually, Emma spoke up. Can we have pancakes for breakfast tomorrow? With the chocolate chips? I laughed, the tension breaking. We can have whatever you want for breakfast. Can we have breakfast for dinner sometimes too? Tyler asked hopefully. Absolutely. We make the rules now. Emma grinned. No more comparing us to Madison and Braden? Never again, I promised. No more having to be quiet when the adults are talking? Tyler added. You can always talk to me. Your voice matters. They both hugged me tighter, and I realized this was what safety felt like for them. Not a big house or expensive gifts or prestigious family connections. Just knowing their mom had their backs, no matter what. The silence in my house was profound. No arguing, no comparing, no walking on eggshells. Just peace. I slept better that night than I had in years. The next morning, I took Emma and Tyler to school, then headed to work at the accounting firm where I'd been employed for 6 years. My coworker Jennifer noticed something different immediately. "You look lighter," she said. "What happened?" I told her the whole story over lunch. She listened, shaking her head in disbelief. "Good for you," she said when I finished. "Seriously, Sarah. I've watched you stress over these people for years. They don't deserve you or your kids." "I keep waiting to feel guilty," I admitted. "But I just feel relieved." "That should tell you everything you need to know." Over the next few weeks, my parents tried various tactics. First came the angry messages demanding I apologize. Then came the guilt trips about how I was tearing the family apart. Then Lauren tried, sending messages about how I was being childish and throwing away family over nothing. I didn't respond to any of it. My dad showed up at my house once. I watched through the window as he knocked, but I didn't answer. He left an envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a card that said, "We forgive you. Come to Lauren's birthday dinner next month. The kids are invited too." They forgave me. As if I was the one who'd done something wrong. As if showing up to a birthday dinner would erase years of favoritism and cruelty. I threw the card away. The next week, my Aunt Carol called. She was my mother's younger sister, someone I'd always liked but rarely saw since she lived 3 states away. "Sarah, I heard about what happened. Your mother called me." I braced myself for the lecture, the family pressure, the insistence that I needed to apologize and make amends. "I just want you to know," Carol continued, "that I think you did the right thing. I've watched how they treat your kids compared to Lauren's for years, and it's made me sick. I tried talking to Margaret about it once, and she acted like I was crazy. Said she treats all the grandchildren the same." Tears sprang to my eyes. "You saw it?" I thought maybe I was being too sensitive. "Honey, no. You weren't being sensitive. You were being patient. More patient than most people would have been. I'm actually calling to see if maybe you and the kids would want to come visit me this summer. My grandkids would love to meet Emma and Tyler, and I'd love to spend some real time with them." We talked for almost an hour. She told me stories about growing up with my mother, about how Margaret had always been the golden child in their family, favored by their parents. How she'd learned to play favorites because that's what had been modeled for her. "Doesn't make it right," Carol said. "Understanding where it comes from doesn't excuse it. But maybe it helps you know it was never really about you or your kids. It's just a sick pattern she's repeating." After we hung up, I felt lighter. Having someone from the family acknowledge what I'd experienced, validate that it was real and wrong, meant more than I could express. Emma overheard part of the conversation and asked who I'd been talking to. "Aunt Carol. She invited us to visit this summer." "The one with the farm?" "That's her. She has chickens and a garden and everything." Emma's face lit up. "Can we really go?" "Absolutely. We're building our own family now, remember? We get to choose who we spend time with." "People who are nice to us?" "Exactly." Emma's teacher called me in for a conference about 6 weeks after the restaurant incident. I went in worried that something was wrong, but Ms. Rodriguez was smiling. "I wanted to tell you that Emma has really blossomed lately," she said. "She's more confident, more vocal in class. She seems happier. Whatever you're doing at home, keep it up." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you for telling me that." Tyler's kindergarten teacher said something similar at his parent-teacher conference. "He's really come out of his shell. He used to be so quiet, but now he raises his hand and shares during circle time." My kids were thriving. Without the constant comparison, without being made to feel lesser, they were becoming more fully themselves. 3 months after the restaurant, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Sarah Patterson?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes?" "This is Melissa Harper. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services. I'm calling because a report was filed claiming you're neglecting your children and denying them food." My blood went cold. "What?" The report was filed by Margaret and Robert Patterson, who identified themselves as the children's grandparents. They claim you regularly withhold meals as punishment and that your children are being underfed. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. They'd called CPS on me. My own parents had reported me for child neglect because I'd stood up to them. "That's completely false," I said, my voice shaking. "My children are well fed and cared for. This is retaliation because I cut contact with my parents after they..." I stopped, took a breath, and explained the whole situation. The favoritism, the restaurant incident, the decision to go no contact. Melissa listened carefully. "I still need to come out and do a home visit. It's protocol with any report. But I appreciate you giving me context. Would tomorrow afternoon work? Yes. Whatever you need. I spent that night terrified, even though I knew my home was fine, my kids were healthy and happy. But CPS involvement was every parent's nightmare. Melissa came the next day. She was professional but kind, interviewing Emma and Tyler separately, checking the kitchen, their bedrooms, looking at their school records. She asked them about meals, about how I treated them, about whether they felt safe. After an hour, she sat down with me at the kitchen table. "Mrs. Patterson, I've seen actual neglect, and this isn't it. Your children are healthy, well-adjusted, and clearly loved. Your kitchen is stocked, their medical records are up to date, and they both spoke glowingly about you. I'm going to close this case as unfounded." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. However," she continued, "I do need to document the false report. Making a knowingly false report to CPS is a crime in this state. If you choose to press charges, I can provide documentation supporting that this appears to be retaliatory." I sat with that for a moment. Part of me wanted to press charges, wanted to make them face consequences for trying to weaponize the system against me. But another part of me just wanted to be done with them entirely. "I just want them out of my life," I said finally. Melissa nodded. "I understand. But I'm going to send them a letter informing them that the case was unfounded and that false reporting is a criminal offense. Sometimes that's enough to prevent future issues." After she left, I sat at my kitchen table and cried. Not sad tears, exactly. Angry tears, relieved tears, exhausted tears. They tried to take my kids from me. That's how far they were willing to go rather than admit they'd been wrong. My neighbor, Patricia, knocked on my door 20 minutes later with a casserole. She was a retired teacher in her 70s who'd lived next door for the past 4 years. "I saw the CPS car," she said gently. "And before you worry, I want you to know that if they'd asked me about you as a mother, I would have told them the truth. That you're one of the best parents I've ever seen. That your children are polite, well cared for, and clearly loved. That you work hard and sacrifice for them constantly." I started crying again, and she pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and kindness. "My own daughter went through something similar," Patricia said as we sat at my kitchen table. "Not CPS, but family drama. Her in-laws were toxic, made her feel small, criticized everything she did. When she finally cut them off, they tried everything to manipulate her back. It took years, but she finally found peace." "How long did it take?" I asked. "Before she stopped feeling guilty?" "About a year before the guilt faded. But Sarah, let me tell you something. The guilt you're feeling? That's programming. That's years of them training you to accept unacceptable behavior. Real guilt comes from actually doing something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You protected your babies." Emma came and hugged me. "What's wrong, Mom?" "Nothing, baby. Just feeling a lot of feelings. The lady said we're good kids and you're a good mom." "She's right about that." Patricia stayed for another hour, and we talked about everything and nothing. She told me about her garden, about her grandchildren who visited from Colorado, about the book club she was part of. Normal, kind conversation that had nothing to do with family drama or proving my worth. As she was leaving, she turned back. "Sarah, you've got a whole life ahead of you. Don't spend it looking backward at people who couldn't see your value. Look forward to all the people who will." Those words stayed with me for days. Life moved forward. Emma joined soccer and loved it. Tyler started taking swimming lessons. We had dinners together every night, just the three of us, and it was peaceful. We started our own traditions, things that had nothing to do with my family of origin. Friday movie nights with homemade pizza. Sunday morning pancakes with faces made out of chocolate chips and fruit. A jar where we each put a note every day about something good that happened. About 6 months after the restaurant incident, I ran into Lauren at the grocery store. It was unavoidable. We practically collided turning the corner of the cereal aisle. She looked tired. There were circles under her eyes, and her usually perfect hair was in a messy ponytail. "Sarah." Her voice was flat. "Lauren." We stood there awkwardly. She glanced at my cart, which had Emma's favorite cereal and Tyler's preferred brand of fruit snacks. "How are the kids?" she asked, and she sounded genuine for once. "They're great. Really happy." She nodded slowly. "Madison's been asking about Emma. Said she misses her." I felt a pang of sadness for the cousins, who'd been denied a relationship through no fault of their own. Emma mentions her sometimes too. Lauren looked like she wanted to say something else, but instead she just nodded and pushed her cart past me. I thought about that encounter for days afterward. Part of me wondered if Lauren ever resented the favoritism, even as she benefited from it. If she ever felt the weight of always having to be perfect, always having to be the golden child. If she was as trapped by our parents' dynamics as I had been. But ultimately, she'd made choices too. She'd watched them exclude my children and said nothing. She'd participated in it. And whether she regretted it now or not, I couldn't let her back in just to potentially hurt my kids again. A year after the restaurant, Emma had a birthday party at a local trampoline park. She invited 12 friends from school, and every single one came. Tyler helped her blow out the candles, and we sang off-key and ate too much cake. Nobody asked about grandparents. Emma's friends didn't know or care that her maternal grandparents weren't there. They just knew Emma was fun and kind and a good friend. After all the kids left and I was cleaning up, Emma came up to me. She was 8 now, getting taller, losing that little kid roundness in her face. "Mom, today was the best birthday ever." "Yeah? What made it so special?" She thought about it. Because everyone there wanted to be there. Nobody came because they had to. Nobody compared me to Madison. People just liked me for me. I pulled her into a hug, this wise little girl who'd learned lessons I wish she hadn't needed to learn, but who was becoming such a strong person because of it. "You are so worth liking for you," I whispered into her hair. My phone still got occasional messages from my mother. They came every few months, usually around holidays. "Family gatherings aren't the same without you. The grandchildren ask about Emma and Tyler. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" Always framed as me being the problem. Never an acknowledgement of what they'd done. Never an apology. Just the assumption that I'd eventually cave and come back, accepting their scraps of affection and watching my kids be treated as lesser. I didn't respond. Eventually, the messages became less frequent. I heard through mutual acquaintances that my parents told people I'd turned bitter after my divorce and was alienating the children from family. The narrative they'd constructed painted me as unreasonable, them as victims of my cruelty. I didn't try to correct the story. People who mattered knew the truth, and people who believed their version without asking questions weren't people I needed in my life anyway. On what would have been 2 years since the restaurant incident, I took Emma and Tyler back to Lake George. Just us, nobody else. We rented a small cabin for the weekend, and we hiked and swam and roasted marshmallows. "Remember when we came here with Grandma and Grandpa?" Tyler asked one night as we sat around the fire pit. "I do. What do you remember about that trip?" He was quiet for a moment. I remember feeling like I was always doing something wrong. Even when I was trying my best. Emma nodded. "Yeah. And remember how Grandma gave Madison and Brayden those big ice cream cones but told us we couldn't have any because it was too close to dinner, but then dinner was like 3 hours later?" I'd honestly forgotten that specific incident. It had been one among dozens. "I'm sorry you guys had to experience that." "It's okay," Emma said. "I mean, it wasn't okay then. But we have good stuff now. We have this." She gestured around at the three of us, at the fire, at the stars overhead, at our little rented cabin where nobody was comparing anyone to anyone and everyone belonged. "We do have this," I agreed. Tyler leaned against me, and Emma rested her head on my shoulder, and we watched the fire burn down to embers. I thought about that moment in the restaurant, standing up and walking out. How terrifying it had felt, how uncertain. I'd had no idea if I was doing the right thing or making a huge mistake that I'd regret forever. But sitting here with my kids, seeing them confident and secure and happy, I knew I'd made the right choice. They deserved to grow up knowing their worth wasn't conditional. They deserved to be loved fully, not in comparison to someone else. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to love you properly. Sometimes protecting your children means cutting off people who share your blood. Sometimes family is what you build, not what you're born into. The fire crackled, and Emma started humming a song from school, and Tyler joined in off-key, and I thought about that moment when I'd whispered copy that to myself. When I decided I was done accepting unacceptable treatment. Best decision I ever made. We drove home on Sunday evening, all three of us singing along badly to the radio, stopping at a diner for burgers without any drama or cruelty, just us being us. When we got home, Emma hugged me tight before heading to her room. "Mom? Thank you." "For what, sweetheart?" "For picking us. I know it was hard to stop seeing Grandma and Grandpa. But thank you for picking us." I kissed the top of her head, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "It wasn't hard," I wanted to say. "You made it easy. You were always the obvious choice." But she was already heading to her room, Tyler following behind her, the two of them giggling about something only siblings understand. I sat on my couch in my quiet house, no angry texts lighting up my phone, no upcoming family gathering to dread, No need to steel myself against casual cruelty disguised as family dynamics. Just peace. Just love. Just us. And it was more than enough. It was everything.